Hello, welcome to the Change Ahead blog. I'm here with my colleague and friend Tuesday Ryan Hart, and we are part of running a 3-day session here in Washington, D.C., particularly focused around the kind of merging of the worlds of participatory leadership and social justice and equity work. And so we just have been having a few thoughts that have been ruminating here and wanted to just like knock them together in the kind of like throwing our thoughts out there as they come up for us kind of a way, which this video blog is. So I think the one of the primary things that's really sunk in for me here, and I'll just kick it off, Choose,
sure.
if that's all right. One of the primary things that's kind of sunk in for me here is that I'm involved in many systems change efforts, either in industries or within government institutions or across organizations or across sectors, and that there's a real danger that we get involved in systems change work but don't fundamentally change anything, you know. And so this like the integration of social justice and equity work, which begins to start looking at the distribution of power, wealth, authority, decision making into these systems and structures and organizations I'm working with, rather than just looking at the systems change. I think there's something that's sunk in for me about that. I'm not being particularly coherent. Why don't I pass it over to you?
Sure. No, I think that's exactly right. I think that often it's our hope with systems change that we fundamentally transform systems, right? But what we're digging deeper into here over the last 3 days is, unless you very intentionally and specifically have an equity lens or bring some of that thinking and practice into your systems change, you might actually change the system. Right. But fundamentally, you might still have the hierarchies and the oppressive structures that just replicate what we've had before. So the system might look different. You might have actually changed the system, right, but you may not have changed the structures that underlie the system, and you might actually have the same results for people within the system, right? And so that's really the challenge, right? It's like it's not actually enough to hope that when we change the system, it changes people's circumstances.
Right.
We actually have to design for that.
And we have to start addressing some of the underlying causes and beliefs and assumptions that are individuals and the systems and structures themselves hold, right? Yeah.
And I was just talking to one of our participants here, and he said he interviewed folks, and when he interviewed them, he asked them, "How do you think power is part of this issue?" And I thought,
right.
Beautiful, right? Like we
right.
could ask that for every sensing interview we do, or interview
right.
with folks we do, like
right.
just to bring that in, because people know it,
right.
They have ideas about it, but
right.
somehow often we don't access that in our efforts, right? Our efforts somehow stay at the level of just kind of shifting practice or shifting policy, but it actually doesn't get to some of those deeper power dynamics. And I think it's because often folks feel overwhelmed and not sure how to get to them.
Right, and like work I've been doing within government or across the forestry sector is like, as things go broader, like how do you actually sustain the depth of conversation that real transformation can take place? Because the danger is the broader you go, the more shallow the interventions become. And so there's something about, like, I think there's a huge body of knowledge in social justice and equity work, and a huge depth of analysis of like how we work with the different power structures that exist within our society and within our organizations, and how those things limit us accessing the diversity of voices that we need at the table to actually figure out something fundamentally new, you know. So I think there's some real value in the merging of these two worlds, and of course the tension of it is, and we've been talking about that a lot here, is that a lot of social justice and equity work is built around the education right. of people, in particular issues around social justice, equity, power, privilege, and kind of the approach that participatory leadership brings is one of creating the conditions for people to figure it out themselves. And so there's some kind of like marrying of those two things that feels important for us to be able to do it.
Right. That's right on the edge for what we're doing here and what we're learning about, right? Like, how do you actually kind of know some things, have an analysis around power, and yet let people figure it out? Like, how do you infuse that throughout? And I think that that's really the edginess here, and the opportunity here, right? The actual opportunity here to figure out how to do that well together, how to know what we know, some of us around power and analysis, and yet let that be influenced, informed, and inform the larger whole.
Great,
right?
Yeah. Buddy of mine, Becky Atkinson, she talks about the difference between organizations that have that have cultures of deference and cultures of difference. Right. So are we working in a culture that brings together all of the difference to the table so we can figure out our solutions, change each other, and come up with something fundamentally new? Or are we in culture of deference where we're waiting for the solution to come down from the top? Yes, minister, no minister, thank you, whatever. And so, yeah.
That's brilliant. Love
Cool.
it.
Good enough.
Building cultures of difference.
Good. Thanks very much. TuesdayRyanHart.com.
Seeing you through.
Take care, friends. Change your head. Bye.